All right, so this one we're going to do something a little bit different. So we'll have a panel, and I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions. So definitely, as you get to know some of the individuals up here, you're going to have questions because they're all stars in their fields, and we're going to come at this topic from multiple different perspectives. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So just to get us kicked off, we'll start with, make sure I have them in order. Yep, Dr. Raja Sanidhi, Dr. Ram Dandalaya, and Dr. Francisco Sidro. So we'll just start with, if I can start with you, Raja, just tell us a little bit about what you do in your background.
My name is Raja Sanidhi. I'm a PharmD, graduated in 2003 from pharmacy school in Long Island University, and been
a
pharmacist for about 21 years now. And then just worked on it sort of for the wellness and anti-aging throughout the last few years as it merged into the mainstream now.
Yep, and your business, founder of Capital Drugs.
Yes, actually Capital Drugs has been around for about 30 years. I acquired it in 2016 and been in LA since then.
Amazing. Ram, please, a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Great. First, thanks, Adam and Troy, for having me. My name is Ram Dandalaya. I'm a cardiologist and internist. I serve as the Department of Internship of Cardiology at Cedars-Sinai. I also have a private practice really focused on prevention and longevity. And that's really been my professional interest for the last few years. So it's a very exciting time to be in medicine with the breakthroughs. So really that's been my focus.
Awesome. Francisco.
Yeah, I'm a naturopathic doctor, but I did my master's and a PhD in neuroscience and a postdoc in health sciences. Became a professor in neurophysiology and integrative medicine. Was co-founder of the Lab of Experimental Neuroscience at a very big university in the south of Brazil. I'm still an associate professor there. I'm also an associate professor at La Sapienza University in Rome in the neurosciences program. And I was very happy to hear that they are from Hyderabad in India. I'm actually going there in February to run a functional MRI clinical trial in Hyderabad. So, coincidence, we do a lot of research with AIMS, with all of the Institute of Medical Sciences and NIMHANS, National Institutes of Neurosciences and Mental Health in Bangalore as well. So that's my background. I'm a co-founder with Elias and Veronica Pruden.
Yeah. And so what I think is super interesting about this panel is that we have not only their backgrounds, of course, but we're coming at this from different angles. So whether it's cardiology, whether it's naturopath, whether it's the pharmacy side of things, I guess just to open up the can of worms here, and whoever wants to jump first can, trends in longevity and what you're seeing from your perspective in fields. Who wants to go?
I think it's a combination of all everything.
There we go.
We have to make good use of everything. I really like the approach in terms of longevity because being a naturopathic doctor, I was always concerned about doing things before you actually get sick, right? And instead of trying to treat a disease or a problem that we absolutely need it because people get sick, so we need that part. We should be very much concerned about not getting sick and then doing the things that we can in terms of prevent that, like lifestyle interventions, and we all know about exercise and diet and taking the proper supplements because sometimes we can get it all from the food, right? And then when we need the cardiologist, then he's right there prepared to do it.
I think far too long in this country, healthcare has really been sick care, much to your point. And in medical school, I think, we had maybe an hour of nutrition training. So I think you see a real paradigm shift in the last 2 years. With the explosion of all these influencers, health optimization centers. So, there's this saying that, the patient is going to see you now as a physician, so patients are more empowered. So we're seeing just more accessibility for complex lab testing, which can be sometimes a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
More access to imaging, MRI imaging, body imaging with Prenuvo, for example. So I think you see this incredible transformation where there's now data. Now, what do you do with that data? And that's where I think trends in artificial intelligence, analyzing these complex data sets, that's going to be the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it's going to be remarkable what we're going to see.
With the pharmacy side, like you were saying, supplements and everything, I think the knowledge of the right supplements is the key. And also the right product lines, as in the sense of the companies that are there. Because there's with medication and the tests and everything else, the FDA gets involved and there's some kind of standard. With vitamins and natural products, there is no official standard. It all comes as a health aid or neutral natural products. So with that, having the right knowledge of where to get the right product because of the most availability is what's going to also set your treatment better. And going back to Dr. Ram, like what you're saying that patients coming in with the knowledge and asking those questions now has actually helped us in get them the proper guidance of what they should be taking, what products are better than the other ones, and how that would help them out.
And the concern with the proper research and everything else is one of the guidelines that actually stimulated us to start the company improvement, because I've been in the health and wellness sector for 15 years. Even before that, when I was still a student doing my master's, my PhD, I always had the eye on the market. I was saying, I want to study something that then people are going to use, that's going to be of service, right? And always in terms of non-invasive, complementary. And then when I came to the U.S., I was born in Brazil, family is Italian, but I've been here for 13 years, so I actually like to talk about that because I have 3 passports. Brazilian, American, and Italian, and I do travel all the time between the 3 different countries. But I came and I was surprised that in the U.S., you didn't have to prove before you started selling.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, but this is kind of a disservice to this, because a lot of people take supplements and they say it didn't do anything for me. Yeah, you didn't take the proper dose, you took something that was not validated. So I thought it was very important that we developed a system that is going to help people. Also, I was very happy to be working with companies that have the ethics to say, I want to do the research, right? To prove that what I'm saying actually is happening. And then that's how we started, working together. It's very important.
Going back to what you were saying, America was more reactive than proactive, right?
There
So now I think that concept is changing for the patients and the public, saying, I want to feel healthy all the time, not feel healthy when I'm sick. Or recover faster.
Yeah.
I want to be on this general path line, and then I want to optimize that. And how do I get from here to here, rather than only feel like when I have a cold, I need to go in and see a doctor. So now, going back to what you were saying, patients come in and they go, oh, I bought vitamin C from the local pharmacy, and it's Sundown. And I'm not trying to name names, but Sundown is not a great product, right? So you got to look at what's out there and say, okay, because no one's checking actual vitamin C levels in that. You're only getting whatever they're saying it is, but it's sometimes not true. So you got to get a product that actually has some data, some testing that shows the efficiency of the values that are in there, and that's where the difference is.
And I think the other thing is that patients can now, from the comfort of their home, get complex labs done. They can get a telemedicine exam. They never have to step into a doctor's office and really get a physical exam, which is a big transformation. A lot of this is now acceptable. They can get on peptides, tirzepatide, and Ozempic, which has been a big, again, shift in health, I think, for the better. But there's also some careful things, some dangerous things about not having more of that interaction in person with the doctor, and we worry about that a little bit.
So one of the things here, and one of the things that I'm a fan of, is the idea that the general public and that the masses want to be more educated. When I think about our marketing for like this conference, longevity, when you think about the other 2 days that'll happen on Saturday and Sunday, right? 4 days straight, longevity and health. Some people are in the industry, some are here for education, some are here for products and ideas. So I find it super interesting, and I'm curious, there was a theme across all of these, which is a more educated client or patient in this case. How do you feel a more educated patient leads to, or does it, like better patient outcomes or moving the industry in general? Like, how does that play its role?
I personally think it's a great thing. I think the double-edged sword, I'll give you an example. I think there was a law that was passed that the hospitals have to release lab results within 24 hours and also progress notes to the patient. And that can create a lot of confusion, because patients are now interpreting their own lab results, and then we get frantic calls within hours of that test being resulted, and we haven't seen these.
Yeah.
And we're trying to scramble to find out. So now we're sort
That's
of
tricky. Yeah, that was.
Tricky. So I think on the one hand, it's very empowering. Like some people are complaining they're waiting weeks and weeks and weeks to get lab results from the doctor. But now it's like you can get it the same day it's released to us or before.
Yeah.
It's either too fast or too slow. It takes some time to
Yeah.
adapt, I think, right?
Yeah.
Change something, then it goes all the way to the other, side until it goes back to the middle. I think. But
It's also where the information is gathered for the patient, right?
Mm.
If they are watching, depends on where they're getting that information. If they're following some person that has no medical background, but is preaching all these things online or on Instagram or any of the social media networks, and then we have to address those and take how much validity is actually there in what they're saying regarding this person or regarding their questions. So I think that's a lot goes on with all of the industry on the healthcare side, is that where are you getting this information and how are you translating this information into what you need to know.
education, right? Education goes hand in hand with this.
Roger, let's keep it on you for a bit. From the pharmacy side of things, helping patients get access to medications based on different categories, like any trends or things that are happening there.
So medications are now getting more specific to the needs of the disease or the state of the patient, which is good. The other is that a lot of doctors and a lot of healthcare providers are going off-label for the use of the medications. So if you're not in tune with the new protocols or the new longevity or wellness patterns, then a pharmacist would not be comfortable filling the prescription. And so that's where the access to medication comes into play for us, is that to understand where this person is getting this and why they're using it. Just asking them questions, figuring out what their purpose for this is, and going from there. And that's where I think the difference lies in access to medications. Like you can get most of the medications at any pharmacy, but if the person doesn't know why this is being given, then that's where the harm is.
And Francisco, does this play into I know at Proven, one of the things you're doing is whether it's clinical trials or there's multiple things that you're able to, that companies and brands approach Proven for to help them get. Does this affect it at all? Like, does this play into the mix at all?
Yeah, it's a very complex market right now. And actually one of the more interesting things that I find is with the people that we start working with, is that most of the times they want to make claims that they shouldn't be making anyways. So that's the first thing.
No examples, please.
Just like in general, you go to work with a device, for instance, that's supposed to help with quality of sleep, and then people say, oh, but it also helps with the stress, so we're going to market it for PTSD. Or, you have no clinical trials for that. Do you want to go through all the FDA process and everything else? Do you want to be in the market to treat a disease or a problem? Or are you more interested in doing something that is going to help everybody, the whole population? Health and wellness, who doesn't have problems? So why don't you target the things that make more sense, and that is going to put you in the health and wellness, and then you still do your clinical trials, because now there's a differentiator in the market, right? Because most of the other companies don't have anything. But do it right, put it in the proper category. So one of the things that we start doing is looking at the claims. So we have Veronica that specializes, she's a lawyer, she's been doing this for many years. So she helps us guide through that process. And then we also have to find what are the proper outcomes that make more sense for you, that is going to be unique and differentiated. Then we have, Elias that does all that, that's been in the market for many years, that knows what people should be saying, what makes more sense. And then I'm the last one. I have to prove this. Hey, let's do the trial to see if it really happens. So we cover the whole spectrum, and I think that's very important. Because people are a little misguided, I should say.
So Ram, you have a unique perspective and a unique vantage point. Highly visible role at Cedars-Sinai, and you see a lot of cases. So I'm just curious from your end on the cardiac side of things, prevention and longevity, like what kind of advances are taking place, or what are you seeing?
Sure. Well, I think one of the biggest things is the access to high quality cardiac imaging is going to be a big trend now and in the next few years. Everyone should be getting, after the age of 40, a coronary calcium scan. But now you can do what's called a CT coronary angiogram to look at plaque in the artery. Now there's AI analysis on that plaque companies like HeartFlow clearly that can actually see if that's actually going to be a very high risk plaque that's going to rupture and cause a sudden cardiac event. So unfortunately, insurance doesn't cover some of these advanced testing modalities, but this is where the field is going, is advanced and early detection. So it's a big area.
Yeah. So when we think about longevity, what do you think are some of the key things that are going to be leading to and this is the kind of dreaming part here, so not holding you into this, but what are going to be some of the things that lead to better patient outcomes going forward? Like just dreaming for a moment.
Well, people are going to have to change some of their habits, right?
I said, don't dream too much. Come on. We heard the joke earlier from Victor, right? We'll do anything if we want to.
It always has to be a lifestyle and training. Don't you agree? It always has to be
Starts
something.
from there. So
Yes. Because, like, you go to a therapy, and then whatever therapy, no matter if it really works, it's great. You only go like once or twice a week. You have to do something that you do every day.
It's accessibility, I think, also to be able to have those modalities for you, or like be willing to do those. Like you're saying, the changes the person has to change and want to do it.
Yeah.
How do you get them to get there?
And I would add on that you have the miniaturization of technology, so you're going to have continuous monitoring through devices. You have Oura Ring and all these different types of technologies. On the heart side, what's exciting is that there's technology being developed. There's companies out there that are looking at continuous monitoring for troponin through like a smartwatch. I mean, it's still a little far away off, but imagine that we can get to a heart attack patient hours or days before there's the actual event. I mean, that's going to dramatically change the landscape.
Yeah.
And I think with smartphones, again, there's just easier and easier access. There was one thing I was reading that was interesting just today about vocal biomarkers. So just based on a short conversation, the AI technology can predict if someone's going to be hypertensive.
Wow.
And I was like, that's interesting.
That is.
Already just on the basis of an EKG, something that's very, very simple that we do every day in our office, AI technology can predict risk of heart failure, heart attack, atrial fibrillation based on millions of EKGs and very obscure data points that only the technology can read. So this is the future.
Constant monitoring, things that you can do at home, right? And it's still going to take you to change certain habits. But it's a combination of the technology and the will of the participant.
Exactly.
Let's give a takeaway here. What are some things we can do at home? I like that. That's a good one. I want a takeaway.
Oh, the major ones, right? You have to have some stress management program, right? That was invented in India many millennia ago, right? The meditative practices and everything else. And then people ask me sometimes, like, okay, how long do I have to meditate? Forever. Right. How long does that have to be well? Exercising is another one, right? It's extremely important. So stress management and meditation is the best, right? And all the other modalities that exist now, technology. Americans, we're a little lazy, I guess, to sit down and meditate, so we use technology to do that in a good way. But diet, for sure, and the exercising. And then, some decent quality of sleep, I think, is very important.
I think for us, it's what you're saying, Americans in general, we want instantaneous results. We don't wait for the results, right? Like going back to India, and if you go back, all the other natural meds and all the alternative therapies, homeopathy, Ayurvedic, Chinese herbs, whatever you take, you gotta take it consistently to get your immune system or your body built up to where you want it. And America's never been in that kind of mindset. It's, I have a headache, what do I do right now? Not prevent the headache, right? So that goes back to what he was saying, stress management, exercising, change of habits. If you go to a homeopathic doctor, their first question is not the problem you have. It's like, tell me about your whole life. And they want to know from the day you were born till the day of now when you're sitting in this chair, what is causing this problem? Then they'll go back to the root of it and find out what the issue is. But that that headache might not go away from them. You still might have that headache. So that's the difference, I think, with like us here, is that we want it now and we want it right now, not a week from now.
Yeah.
I think you have that with Ozempic.
We want to think about something and then immediately Amazon's dropshipping it.
You can't get better service than that.
Man, Ram, how do I take care of my health? I want you in on that question too. My heart, come on. I know you. I know your name for a long time. Give me some tips, man.
How much time do you have? Well, I encourage everyone, as a preventative cardiologist, of course, the lifestyle is critical between diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, all those things. But I think you really need to know your risk. You need to, and for those of you who follow Peter Attia, I think he does a good job with really proposing all of these things. But check your Lp(a) status, get your lipid panel, look at ApoB, get a calcium scan. These are all easy, relatively cost-effective things that can be done in almost every community. And once you have that data set, you can really customize a plan based on that. And then you can see, well, listen, what do I need to do for the cholesterol? Cholesterol is not the whole story. Do I need to get a CT for an angiogram? So you start to, unroll this better once you have those fundamentals. So that's the key, is to get tested.
Francisco, I want to know more about Proven in terms of the types of brands and companies that you work with. Like, is there a certain size of company, a certain stage they need to be in? Can you give us a little bit of an overview?
Well, it's more, we very much concentrated in the health and wellness sector, from supplementation to devices and even methods. I mean, we worked with specific methods before as well. A specific approach that doctor is using and then wants to validate it in comparison to another method or methodology, combination of different things. And the companies don't have to be like just starting. They can have generally it's a company that already has a medium size, I should say. And most of them, as we know, have no studies, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them don't. Our friends from Ribosine that you heard before, right? They had a lot of material already, which is rare in this world. So we were very happy to be working with them as well. So it has to be people that have an ethical principle, that want to prove and to validate what you're doing, that trust that the outcomes are going to be favorable, because you never know. I mean, we've tested companies that we got no results. That can happen.
Yeah.
Right? So most of the time, it's people that really believe in what they're doing and want to do the right thing and show that their product is effective.
So I have one more question here, and then I'm going to open it up for the audience as well. So I want to see some hands raised. Think about it. I'm just giving you some warning here. I'm going to do it in a minute. Francisco, I want to keep it on you just a little bit longer. So working with different brands, healthcare, that's a given. What are some of and we saw one company that was up earlier, but what are some of the different ways that you're helping them? I said it kind of quickly earlier, but I want to make sure that you talk just a little bit about it, whether it's clinical trials or there were a couple different things that you do.
We can help them with the claims. Look at the claims and make sure that they are not infringing upon any regulatory. So make sure that the regulatory is in order. And then we do claims development as well, right? When we find out that certain things shouldn't be there, how do we develop? What is the claim that is going to resonate from a regulatory standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint? If everybody's saying the same thing, you don't have a differentiator.
Yeah.
We help you with the development of what you should be saying. We do voice of consumer analysis that we go back to people and then find that. We do scientific competitive analysis, so there's different people that are competing against each other. We look at what they have in terms of research and what can we do to be different and differentiate. Of course, literature reviews before you do any studies, and then all types of trials, like from pharmacokinetics, dynamics, from the toxicology. Sometimes they don't have it, and we do all that. And then efficacy, from animal models to clinical trials and so on and so forth. Decentralized, centralized in universities and in clinics and online. I mean, there is a gamut of different ways that we can help.
All right. Let's open up for questions. Who wants to go first?
Here.
Oh, there we go.
Can you comment on where do you see AI coming into each of your industries, and what are the most concrete examples you've seen where that's actually made a tangible difference at the current stage?
I can do a crack at it. Cedars has done actually a lot of work in AI in our field, in cardiology. They have for about the last 10, 15 years, for our nuclear cardiology scans, there's artificial intelligence interpretation. So the software is much they've looked at this and they've validated these data sets. It's just much better than a human eye, reading these studies. Very subtle differences between these stress tests. So that's one example. With reading just heart ultrasounds, echoes, technology is superior to detecting changes in what we call the ejection fraction. Because again, you're depending on a human observer, and two cardiologists, I know one in the room here, will disagree on what the ejection fraction is, not uncommonly. So, and then the last example I'll say is, again, in imaging, is the plaque analysis. AI can really look at a high-risk plaque on a coronary artery and give us direction on whether we need to intensify treatment or take them to the cath lab. So in my field, those are the best examples of it.
With the pharmacy, with AI, would be more for us on that data, just get more data from the AI, but because they're going to start getting, for instance, the side effect profile of a medication, and we would only have what's given to us. But if we could ask AI saying, hey, what was this drug X and what was the side effects of it and what was the percentage of it, it's running through all of the side effects that were possibly reported. And that's where I could see the benefits coming from for us. More side effects and the new therapy that it's being used if I didn't know what it's for, like being used, and saying, has this medication been used for this disease? And if it could generate that information, then I know it's coming from where some data is out there for that.
What about drug discovery in your?
Drug discovery is going to be more, for me, on the industry side. So if it's a molecule that's, if there's a molecule and if we could ask AI sort of saying, hey, if we add on another ring or something else to it, how would the outcome be? That's where I would see that coming in. But drug discovery so far it's always been modifying what's there and then tweaking it to see how the outcome would come out. So as a new drug, maybe giving that information and seeing if we come up with a chemical component and creating a drug.
I wanted to answer last because I know it's going to be a combination of the two. Because in research, you need to gather all the information that we can, and we also need to analyze the results of the outcomes from the study. So there we go.
Awesome.
Do you use it in your business right now? Like how are you're using it to gather the data?
Correct. Yeah. Before you're doing the trials, you have to do like a extensive literature review. You have to look at what's out there, what has been done so far, what are the favorable methodologies. In terms of treatment course, you look at something and okay, so it was not effective. Yeah, you took half of those, or you didn't do it as many as you had to.
Yeah.
So we need to analyze all that to come up with the best possible situation. And the information is out there, but we have people like full time doing literature reviews and everything else, but with AI they can do a lot more. So it's not like substituting. I don't think it's like replacing their jobs or anything. It's just making them more productive.
That's great. Who else? Any other questions?
Sergio here. This is a question more for Dr. Ram, but in your experience, and I know that data set is relatively new, for people who've had COVID-19 and how it relates to heart issues and potential heart risk, heart disease, do you see this trend, it's just starting and you see it continuing in the long run, and what has been done in the interim to try and tie in?
Well, it's a great question. I think during the early stages of the pandemic, as you all know, there was concerns about myocarditis in certain groups of the population. I think as the virus has gotten weaker, we've seen less and less of those types of cases. What I will say, and I was just speaking to Barbara here about this before, there is still a number of people with long COVID, and I see those folks in the clinic. And one of the manifestations of many with COVID is something called POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is a form of what we call a dysautonomia, where there's imbalance in your autonomic nervous system. So I think that has always been an area that was never well addressed, I would say, by the cardiology community. And now it's kind of forced us to really figure out what are some of the newer therapeutics, what do we look at? And this is kind of why many of these technologies for longevity are now looking at things like long COVID. Things like IVIG, plasma exchange. These are all things that are now being looked at on a longevity basis as well. Peptides. So I think it's interesting that you have a disease model that's now also being looked at for the longevity side. But a lot more research has to be done. That's really, really crucial.
Who's next?
I'm going to stand because I'm short. I'm interested in your opinion. We as a collective group are kind of on the cutting edge of what to expect going forward. How do we enhance the customer experience so that they're not going to Dr. Google and finding, information that is either very bad information or misinformation? How do we educate the public going forward?
It's a very difficult answer because the information is out there, right? And some people don't get their news but from Google or Facebook and you can't trust the sources. And if we try to maybe fact check them, then a bunch of people are going to go against us. It's a very, very complicated thing, I think. Education is very important, I guess, creating institutes that are going to have like a good reputation and teach people, but people they don't actually have to go to those institutes. They can continue getting their information from other sources. So it's very, very difficult, I think.
I'll make one comment. The way that doctors traditionally have been getting their information, for example, there was a resource called Up to Date. The problem became that the literature was changing so quickly. The number of papers published every 24 hours is staggering. You cannot possibly process all of that data. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And so there's a company that I'm actually on the advisory board of called Open Evidence. A very brilliant scientist named Daniel Nadler started this company to really solve this issue that we've been working with static data sets. And this is why patients are looking at Google because, this is theoretically a very, dynamic data set. But again, Google just drawing from different websites with different quality and different validity. So Open Evidence, for example, draws on the highest quality literature, and so doctors can really quickly get answers to some very complex questions. So that's one example. And I think the other part is that why are patients seeking information on the internet? Part of it is because they can't get a hold of a doctor, And so this is why concierge medicine has become, really it's been exploding. We have a concierge practice. It's just that, getting a doctor on a phone directly and getting an answer versus waiting a week for a response if you can get a hold of them at all. So I think that's part of the frustration that patients cannot get a hold of their medical team.
I think communicating with the patient, actually understanding what they need is the key. Because a lot of times they might not actually know what they're looking to treat. Because they'll find one thing and that takes them down a rabbit hole, and then they just start looking into other stuff. And then they come to you with all this information, and you're trying to peel the layers and figure out what's the actual root cause. Why are you here? What is the problem? And that's where I think the biggest thing is just understanding what the needs of patients are. Like, hey, what's going on today? What is the cause that you went to Google and asked this question? And that's where I think communication is the biggest factor.
I think that maybe AI can help as well. I think so, yeah. In terms of as we develop tools that learn to double check itself and then get the information from the higher sources, and then eventually I think we're all going to have like a little bot right next to us the whole time. We already have the phone, but it's going to be even more advanced than that. That if we have a question, we ask it, and then you're going to say this comes from 55 different publications or something like that. I think.
And I recall there was a study that looked at physician responses to patient emails and AI responses to the email, and the patient preferred the AI version. They felt that they were getting more accurate. This is a reflection of what's happening in burnout, field. Doctors don't have time to answer 100 emails a day. And this is where, technology can help them.
Yeah, AI empathy, I'm in. Who else, please?
A follow-up question to that. It's wonderful that patients are educated and they want more information, but there's so much misinformation out there. I mean, a patient comes to you, if they don't know anything, that's one thing, but if they know things that are, they get their information from Dr. Google or from some marketing campaigns done by clinics online, you know what I'm talking about. And they come to you with preconceived notions that are completely misguided. how do you do it? I mean, which is worse? Which is harder to overcome? No information or complete misinformation?
Complete business.
Right.
Takes less amount of time.
You have to unwind that.
So you have to
whole-
unwind all that. So things like you just said, open evidence. But I mean, what do you guys think about how to get real information to people? How do we prevent misinformation?
I think
Really?
what Dr. Ram was saying is the data analysis. Like, hey, person comes in and says, I want to go Ozempic, all right? And we're like, okay, that's fine. Ozempic has a lot of great value to health right now. It's showing across numerous disease states benefits right now. And they're doing a lot of studies on it, which is really good. But
Microdosing studies are pretty cool. Microdosing studies.
Microdose studies, really cool. They're looking at addiction right now for it. They're looking at dementia. They're looking at, other than weight loss, cardiovascular prevention. They're showing so much data on it, right? But also, a lot of times is are you, as a patient, able to take the medicine? So understanding that and talking to them about that and getting their history is a big thing. And them coming with information is great, but making sure that they could actually take the medicine is that's where I would look at it from. And then talking to the provider and understanding if this is what the reason is and what's that. That's where I think the information is good. Sometimes there's a problem is there's too much information. And how do you handle too much information is the question. Because they're coming through all these things they're reading, but there's nothing, sometimes some of them are not valid. So you gotta understand what they're trying to get is the question.
It's good. All right, any other questions? Good? All right, let's give the doctors a hand.